Hi everyone. If you're watching this as a recording, it's most likely because there's been a technical hitch in the live session, so I'd like to apologize for that. Um, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak to you, and I probably should say there's a lot that I'm trying to cram into this session, so I'd probably go through it quite quickly. I will publish a recording on our webinar blog, and if you have any questions for me, I would love if you went to that blog and took part in discussions there after this presentation or at some time in the future. Okay, so this is about low-cost production of massive open online courses. There's been a lot of hype about that in the past. A lot of people talking about how they're not sustainable because they're so expensive to produce. So we're looking at maybe ones that might be more sustainable if it could reduce the production costs of MOOCs. So in a way, what I'm just talking about there is why we would want to lower the production costs. But we'll also talk a little bit about how, just a few slides on how as well. A MOOC, a massive open online course. It's massive. It can take up to hundreds of thousands of people coming onto it. Open, it's free. Anybody could come onto it. Now, there are some debates about the word open. It's a very vague term. It means sometimes what people want it to mean, but for the purpose of MOOCs, it just means that anyone can register on the course and they don't have to pay. Online means it's over the internet, and course to some extent means that it's a structured set of learning activities with a particular objective in mind that's a fairly sizable objective. Okay, this is a slide that I borrowed from Phil Hill. It's from 2012 about the barriers. Now, there's just one particular barrier that I want to talk, that we're really addressing here. It's about the sustainability, how much it costs to produce a MOOC, and can you justify it? Now, we will be looking a bit at credentialing or giving awards and who the students are as well, but really it's about the sustainability, the financial sustainability we're addressing here. Okay, so let's get straight into it. The cost of MOOCs. In a survey of 27 universities in the United Kingdom, it showed that the average cost of producing a MOOC was over €40,000. Now, if we're talking about small target audiences, obviously we can't justify spending €40,000 to develop a MOOC. Who would these small target audiences be? They might be for specialized topics at a very high level. It could be if you are working in a minority language, such as many of you are. Will you have enough people studying that topic in your language to justify spending a large amount of money? What if it's in an area that's rapidly changing? All those are likely to have small target audiences, and you can't justify having a high cost production of MOOCs. Now, I have a question for you here. Why do you think those prestigious universities who are involved in Coursera and edX spend so much on their MOOCs? Is it because of the quality of learning that they want in the MOOC, or is it about their reputation? Now, you can think about that for a second, but I would contend, I believe, that really the reason they're spending all that money, it's because they have reputations that they don't want to lose. They must make their courses look extremely good online. And it's about reputation rather than quality of learning. So I have another question now is, if you look at some of the MOOCs on Coursera, and they use primarily what's called an XMOOC pedagogy, we'll come back to that later, is their method of teaching very sophisticated? Now, I show a slide here. It's an image from one of those courses I was on, where there is a lady sitting in a chair talking to the camera. Now, she's talking very well, very coherently, very clearly, and I have to say that I was learning from it. So do people learn from this very simple method of teaching? I would say Yes, they do. One feedback from that course was, I got exactly what I wanted from it and more. A most enjoyable and educational course. So despite the fact that they're using a relatively simple teaching methodology, they're getting good results. But also, they're using a simple teaching methodology, something like what I'm doing here, except I have slides, which that lady doesn't even have. Despite the fact that it's still costing an awful lot. Why is it costing so much for that to produce? Here's another question. It's sort of a separate question. If you put in a course on the internet, and we do a lot of those here, we do a lot of online courses in Sligo, and a lot of them are for quite small class sizes, from anything from 15 students to probably the maximum is about 80 students or 100 students in our courses. So if it's good enough for a small class size, why wouldn't it be good enough for a large class size? If it's online, it's got good teaching materials, why not let a lot of people see this course? So another question, are these so-called TV production values, high production values, that means it's looking very slick, very well produced, do we really need these high production values? Well, I'd like to present one piece of evidence that would suggest not. Some of you may recognize the style in this. This is probably the most successful low-cost, or it's probably the most successful online learning initiative. And this is a video from the Khan Academy. It has absolutely huge amount of viewers, a lot of who have claimed they have really learned extremely well from these videos. Did Salman Khan spend a lot of money producing these? No, he didn't. He did them from his wardrobe, or from a little room with a regular PC and a good graphics tablet where he could draw on the screen. So I would contend that high production values are not required to make an effective course. Okay, as I said, we've been teaching online for probably about 13 years now, and we've taken a very simple approach to teaching online. In fact, now I'm using the core tool that we used to teach online in IT Sligo. It's a conferencing system where we give live classes out, and by the way, there is a chat area there that you can't use if you're on the recording, where students can ask questions, but it's a simple online course where we give classes online. Let me just go over how we might build a simple online course. We might run it for about 12 weeks, and we might have an hour lecture every week. There mightn't be enough time in that hour to cover everything, so we might give them additional readings and point them to additional recordings where they can learn even more. Those could be compulsory or optional extra. We might give them regular quizzes. All the lectures don't actually give them weekly quizzes, but some do, and it's a very useful item for students to see how they're getting on, for them to test themselves, and also to encourage them to keep up. Now, they would get support from their lecturer or their teacher through the forums, and we use Moodle through the discussion forums, and they would get support from each other as well, and it's very important that we encourage them to support each other. They might get, in the course of that 12 weeks, 2 or 3 assignments, 2 or 3 tasks that they've got to do and submit to the lecturer to be graded and to get some feedback. And then they would submit for a final examination. Usually most of our students are in Ireland and they come to a location to do a written examination, but we do have students abroad who take the examination at their desk at home, and we use an online proctoring service for that. Okay, now that we estimate that cost is about, actually, to be honest with you, I think it's more like €5,000. We would pay a lecturer €5,000 to give that course. We would give them no money really to develop it. They will develop it from their existing PowerPoint slides and what existing materials they have and put it online. So it's €5,000, €6,000 we give them to deliver that course, and they develop it included in that. So just say we said, okay, let's let the whole world in and look at this course. Okay, now, so if we had 30 students in it and suddenly we've 3,000 students in it, it does have to change a little bit if we let it in. So the teacher may not be able to provide much support to the individuals in this course. Okay, so they're really going to rely on peer support. It's not really recommended to give live classes. Well, live classes, you could keep on giving live classes to 3,000 people, but it might be better to replace them with short recordings. Short recordings tend to be more recommended, and research seems to indicate that they're more effective. Okay, so we might replace them with short recordings. The assignments, well, the teacher can't correct give feedback on all those assignments, so we can set them up so that students can look at each other's assignments and give each other feedback and even give each other grades, which, by the way, has shown to be quite accurate as a grading method. The final examination would be optional. There's quite a lot of work for us in correcting it, so if we did give a final examination, we would probably have to charge for that. So they would have the option of being charged for that. Okay, so we could say we could spend that money just on developing the course and just slightly reconfiguring it, and then we have that course available. Probably even less than 6,000. But this is a ballpark figure that shows you where we're working, rather than the 40,000 euro that's being talked about by the prestigious colleges that have to defend their reputation. Okay, now I presented this idea at a conference about a year and a half ago, and I met some other people who were very interested in the idea and were convinced that I was right, and they believed in the idea that MOOCs can be produced cheaply. So really this project, the Locomotion project, moocsforall.eu, by the way, is the link for that, our website. It's really about the collection and dissemination of low-cost methods of developing MOOCs. We started that in February of this year. Really what we're doing is we're going to try to build a website and a community of people who are interested in that so we can help each other build it. But we're also going to build a MOOC as well. In fact, we have piloted a MOOC. So it was delivered in the early summer, making MOOCs on a budget. But if you go into that website, you can find the link to that MOOC, and you can even enroll now. It's still open, so you can go in and look over the materials. Based on the feedback for that pilot, we had about 100 people on that pilot. Probably only about 20 people took it seriously. But we're going to, based on that feedback and our own observations, we're going to improve that hugely and deliver it probably around next summer. Okay, so I want to tell you about that, and I would encourage you to go and sign up for that if you're interested in the idea of building low-cost MOOCs. Now, that project that we gave, Making MOOCs on a Budget, was all about how you can build it cheaply. I'm going to spend a few slides talking about how, but there's not I can't really put into 10 minutes here what we have done in that MOOC. But it will give you a flavor of it. And the topics we covered were things like learning design, project management when you're building your MOOC, particularly if you have a few people involved in it. Where do we get the content from, developing content, communication between your team as you develop it, communication with your students, communications before the course, assessment. We look at assessment. How do we see how the students get on? How do they assess themselves? Recruitment. How do we recruit students? Can we give accreditation for these courses? And for the last few slides, I've just left the platform in because this is a Moodle conference. I felt I should say some things about Moodle as a MOOC platform. Okay, learning design. In general, MOOCs to date have sort of spanned the field between what's called an XMOOC and a CMOOC, and I'll just talk about them. So, to be honest with you, they've mostly been XMOOCs, although there have been some attempts at CMOOCs. Just to explain those terms, XMOOC is really about transmission of information. You could say it's what I'm doing now in this recording. I'm transmitting information to you. And it's a much frowned upon method, but it is a fast, simple way of doing it. And for a lot of topics, and depending on the presenter, it seems to be very effective. Now, a CMOOC is a completely different idea. It's actually what's called a connectivist MOOC, where people connect together. And it really is based around discussion, people having discussions with each other, sharing ideas, pointing each other in the right direction. So you could say it's a discussion-based MOOC. So in terms of learning design, we would be taking a simple approach to this, saying, where are you going to place yourself on the spectrum between XMOOC and CMOOC? Along that line, are you going to be more towards XMOOC or CMOOC? Now, CMOOCs, because they're based on discussion, are relatively cheap to develop, but they require a huge amount of management as the course goes on, because there's an awful lot of discussion going on in there. Whereas an XMOOC, those are the ones that have been traditionally considered to be very expensive to produce. But we would contend that an XMOOC, just like I'm giving this presentation now, can be quite simple to do and quite cheap. So we would probably be recommending that you lean towards the XMOOC, because this will save you costs in the delivery phase, even though it may seem to increase costs in the development phase. Project management, as you build your MOOC, you may be working with a distributed team like we are over several European countries, but really you could do this with a shared spreadsheet that indicates all the tasks that are to be carried out, who has to do them, what the task is, when it has to be done, and possibly even why. But you probably need a project manager to get on top of everybody and push them to get their bits of the job done. But it's relatively simple. Everybody can see that. As far as the team is communicating, you can use group email. We use Google Groups, a social network group with instant messaging, and you can use something like Hangouts or a tool like this, Adobe Connect, for doing live meetings. Content. What content? If we lean towards a transmission MOOC, a next MOOC, we're going to have to say, what content are we going to put into the course? These are a few principles that should guide you as you're, we'll say, compiling content for a course. Think about real learning, not glists. You're not showing off. It doesn't have to look fancy. It's really just about solid learning material. So it's about the quality of learning rather than how fancy it looks. You also have to accept that there are some things that might even be worth doing for learning purposes, but they're just too expensive, so you just have to scale back your ambition. Some options are not possible. There is lots of free materials out there, open education resources or other free materials you can point to. Mostly we would encourage you to use Creative Commons materials, which are openly licensed. But if there are other materials that are freely viewable online, possibly you can point people to those materials as well. You're free to point people to materials that are open online. We would suggest that creating videos like this may well be one of the cheapest way of developing your own content, if you want to develop content. If you just have simple graphics, things that you can draw yourself with a graphics tablet like the one up in the corner there, it's probably more important to have a good microphone. I hope this one is quite good here. It's about €100 from Thomann. You might even spend a bit more on it. If there's some problems with the sound here, it may well be the Adobe Connect that is causing problems. This is quite a good microphone. Don't get heavily involved in editing. If I say or whatever and I make mistakes, I'm going to tolerate the mistakes. I'm doing this recording once. However good it is, that's what you're listening to. Okay, so tolerate mistakes. Now, if you do want to do some editing, if you're recording doing editing, don't go back and start it. Keep your videos short. Don't go back and start. Just go back to the start of a section. Maybe leave a little quiet for a few seconds so that you can spot that in the editor. Okay, so don't repeat everything. And I'm going to repeat nothing. Okay, communication. And I'm going to talk here more about the tools in your platform. If you've got 1,000 people on your platform, the communication can become quite confused. So you need to make sure that the communication tools at your platform are scalable. I would say Moodle communication isn't that scalable. It gets quite confusing when it gets large. There are tools outside that you can use, or you can tell people to go onto LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. But there are tools like Piazza and Prulu that probably are better designed, and they can be linked via LTI, Learning Technology Integration, into Moodle. There's another cool tool called Discourse that I haven't looked at, but it seems to be very powerful at bringing the most interesting ideas to the top and dealing with large numbers of people. These are worth discovering. Assessment. Well, your assessment has to be scalable. Now, assessment where students assess themselves, will say they can use multiple choice tests, multiple choice quizzes, or objective tests as they're known as. But they're only closed questions with fixed answers. What if you want open questions to get them to use their imagination, to get them, doing things that you wouldn't expect? Well, those would normally require a teacher to grade them or to give feedback on. But you can have peer assessment. The Moodle workshop activity is an example of that, and it works quite well. But the teacher in a MOOC could not get involved there. Could you award formal credits for this? What do you think? Would you give credits from your college from this? Probably not. Maybe these techniques will get better in the future. For the moment, my guess is the answer to that is no. Recruiting students. Well, for starters, you need a popular topic, a topic that people are interested in. If you don't have evidence that people are interested in the topic, I wouldn't start the project. Just because you teach something, do you think there's a large audience out there? Having said that, if you teach it and you want to do it, and you think you can go to the world and get 100 people to listen once a year, then that may well be worth it. Could be a low-cost MOOC with a limited audience. You want to know who that audience is, and have, I would say, there's a point down there further, social media. Whatever techniques you're going to use, get out there and find that audience. Know who they are and get out and find them. A promotional video, a quick video on YouTube can help. It doesn't have to be that slick, but it certainly has to be interesting. When you get them into the course, try and minimize the amount that drop out. So have a certain amount of variation in the course. Make it interesting, and try not to lose too many students while you're in there. Accreditation. Can we give real college credits for these courses? Now, in looking at this, we have to look at assessment and discriminate between formative assessment and summative assessment. The formative being tests that we give students to help them with their learning, whether it's quizzes that give them a grade and say, well, if you got a high grade, you're doing well. If you got a low grade, maybe you need to look back over the material, or they may give them some feedback in those quizzes. Or it could be a peer assessment where they try to create something, try to do something, and some of their fellow students tell them how they're getting on. That could be informative. But summative, summative is about measuring what they've learned. And if we're going to give accreditation, give college credits for the courses, we need to think about having these end of course summative assessments. Now, you could argue that certain assignments during the course could also be used for summative assessment as well. The concept of unbundling or disaggregation. This is really a concept that's coming to the fore, being discussed mostly in the US, is where we separate the learning from the assessment. People can learn how they like in your MOOC from free materials on the web, and when they're ready, they will apply to do the examination and get their college credit. An important concept. Okay, this concept of what could be called maybe challenge examinations or challenge assessment, when they claim they know it, can be considered under the overriding concept of recognition of prior learning. In other words, they can come to a college and say, I know this stuff already. Can you verify that I know it? Can I get the credits for it? And this is linked to the idea of competency. I can show you that I'm competent. Even this is, I am competent to remember what's in a biology first year course. Okay, I can remember that. I can prove it through a challenge examination. Now, this does throw up some other issues. One is identity verification. Are the people who they say they are, or are they some expert that's just stepping in for some guy who wants a qualification and he's getting somebody, you go and do that examination. So identity verification is a very important issue. And also it requires some effort by the college giving the credits. So even if you can give the course for free, you will probably need to charge for this assessment. There are some models for this. Nano degrees from Udacity, where just small courses that they happen to be putting the term nano degrees. They might be a small group of MOOCs where you take supervised examinations. OERU.org, which is an organization that is pushing out free online learning, but when the colleges put up their courses for free, they have to provide examinations as well. That's Georgia Tech, Arizona State, and MIT have announced that they are giving college credits for MOOCs. Georgia Tech is a full computer science master's degree, but you have to pay, but that payment really just covers the examinations. The courses are effectively MOOCs, even though they do restrict access. Arizona State is allowing complete free access into planning to allow complete free access into the first year courses, and then you can take their examinations and get into their second year. MIT are going to put half of a supply chain management master's degree online for free as MOOCs. You can pay for the examinations, and then you can complete the rest of the master's in the normal way. Open Classrooms in France are putting a complete undergraduate degree online in MOOC format. Platforms. Some things about selecting a platform for your MOOC. And I'm sure you've all selected Moodle already, so I won't try and dissuade you. But these are the issues that you've got to look at. Does it have the features you need? Will it do content hosting? Can you put content up into it? Can you link to content elsewhere on the web? Does it allow you to do formative assessments as they go along to see how they're doing that are part of the course, the quizzes, peer assessments? Can you deal with discussions properly on it? Does it make it easier to register and enroll in the courses? Those are some of the features that you would want. Another thing would be visibility. If I put it up on this platform, will people see it? So if you can get your course up onto Coursera or edX, a lot of people will see it, but they may not let you on it. So putting it up on a platform with lots of other MOOCs is very helpful. Do you have to pay for membership of this group to get onto it, like edX or Coursera? If so, that may not be suitable for low cost. It may well be open, but it may have quality assurance issues. Canvas is a platform. Canvas.net will allow anyone to put MOOCs up in there, but they do want to check out your quality before you do. Or is it completely open? Wiki Educator is an open wiki where you can put up courses. You could host your own. The trouble is your MOOC may be the only MOOC on that platform, and not a lot of people might see it. And that's what we've done in Sligo. We put up our own Moodlemoot platform, put our MOOC on it, but we had to get out and market that through other ways. And if you're really brave, you can mash it up with various services like WordPress and LinkedIn, and put a mashup of various services. So Moodle is a MOOC platform. This is just a snapshot of our Lean Sigma, Introduction to Lean Sigma MOOC that's on Moodle. There you can see the introduction and the weeks. You can see that it's a lot simpler looking than a lot of Moodle courses, and we felt that was necessary to make it a lot cleaner. We actually took a lot of features out, stripped it back. There's one of the weeks where you can see it just links to YouTube videos and they pop up on the screen. It's quite a simple idea. So let's have a look at some of the things about Moodle. Well, the familiarity, if you're using Moodle, it's easy for you to upload materials. It's easy to take courses that you have on your regular Moodle platform and maybe import them in and reuse your existing ones. It is low cost. Is it scalable? Well, I would say there is some debate about whether Moodle can scale to the huge numbers that you have in Coursera. Lots of people claim that it can. I personally believe it doesn't matter. When you get to low-cost MOOCs, 2,000-3,000 students is a very successful low-cost MOOC. Probably you're talking about 400 or 500 students on it. So in terms of the scalability required, Moodle is easily scalable for low-cost MOOCs. You really do want to look about simplifying it, particularly the navigation and the enrollment, because you don't want learners to be constantly asking questions about where this is, looking for help, because you can't provide that at scale. And remember, you're doing this for free. What about the existing features that are in it? Uploading documents, linking to URLs, all there, and very simple to use. Well, yeah, pretty simple to use. Quizzes work well. You can import quizzes from formats. Peer assessment works very well, I think, in the workshop. Certificates and open badges are in there, and integration with other systems. Now, as someone who has been looking at other platforms and working with Moodle, I have a shopping list of things that I would like to see in my Moodle. And I know that some of these are being worked on and some of them are available from plugins, but I'll just go through them. I would like one-step registration and enrollment, where the person sees the course, they click it, they give their details, and it both registers them on the site and enrolls them in that course. And it also may have them on a wait list. In other words, they're sort of in a holding area, and then when a couple of days before the course, it lets them into the course. Scalability of discussions. I don't think that's really there on Moodle. How do you deal with very large scale discussions? Also that it brings to the attention of the tutor or the teacher or the lecturers, what are the important posts that should be reacted to, because you're depending on the learners to support each other. Should we use the forums in Moodle, or should we link to external tools? Embedding YouTube videos is maybe not as neat as it should be, and we've had somebody work on a neater way of doing it. I still think there could be some more work on that. You want to be able to, I've used the edX platform, where you can easily speed up the videos or slow them down. That's a very important feature, I think, if you're relying on videos. A progress bar that shows where I am in the course, very useful for students, and actually quite a motivator, because they want to get all those bars turned to green as they move through the course. Overlapping cohorts. Well, I don't believe that even the existing platforms can use this. Not even talking about Moodle. I don't think any of the platforms, and I think this is doable. We want to be able to start people at different dates, different groups at different dates, and have them even when they're overlapping, before one group is finished, that the other group are in, that they're in and they're seeing slightly different things, that the object releases, those availability dates are based on the start day for that particular cohort or group. And you might also have a group that goes in there and can go through the course at their own speed. So that would be a very useful feature, because there is a problem with MOOCs that are just available from one date to another date. Reuse. How can we reuse MOOCs? If we've got MOOCs up there and somebody wants, on their college campus, they want to put their students on a MOOC, how did they get their students access into a MOOC? Well, we've tried this with LTI between Moodle before, and it's worked quite well, where basically you have a link from one Moodle course into another Moodle course, and it registers them on the other Moodle. I still suspect that it may need some work on the overlapping cohorts to make it work really well. Analytics. Can we analyze what the students are doing, what things that they're doing seem to be working well, and what things need attention to be improved? Payments. Can we bring payments into this? Because we may have some courses that we want to charge for, some that we want to be free. We may have some features that we want to charge for within the course, and others that are free. So those are issues that may have to be addressed. So I believe that the potential is huge. For starters, I think the need is huge, that the cost of education is keeping people out of education. The cost to the student having courses free will help a lot, but we won't have enough courses free unless the cost of production can come down. So I do believe that learning can be free. We can create large numbers of free courses, even if we have to pay for assessment and accreditation. I would like to put in a plug for the group that I'm a member of, oeru.org. Some of you might be interested in getting your institutions to join that if you're interested in developing open learning materials. And that's it. I hope you found this talk useful. I'd like to thank you for your attention. And if you want to contact me, go to my page there at brian.moodlemoot@googlepages.com and get in touch with me, and I'll answer questions. And I'll post this to the blog, and there you can ask questions there. Thank you very much for your time, and sorry for this so long, and I hope it hasn't kept you from the next presentation.